Do you need police, fire, or EMS? Please, I need help! Okay, I can't help you if I don't know where you're at, so tell me the address so we can help you. 3129 with Lady Jailyn. Okay, name? Kristel. What's your last name, Kristel? Kristel Candelario, please tell me. And what's your number in case you get down? I'm going to give you the officer find out. I can't speak English. I'm understanding you. Tell me who's white. Who's white? Please. Your mom? Is it your mom? I am mom, yes. I am mom.
This anguish-filled voice belonged to Kristel Candelario, the mother of baby Jailyn, who was just 16 months old at the time. Little did the authorities know, the mother's desperate pleas concealed a dark secret, a truth so disturbing it challenged the very definition of motherhood. When the police arrived at the scene, they were met with a horrifying sight. Baby Jailyn was lying in her pack-and-play, which was soiled with her own urine and feces. Her eyes were sunken, her lips cracked and dry, and there was fecal matter in her mouth and under her fingernails. It was evident that she was severely dehydrated and malnourished. The police also observed that Jailyn's clothes were not dirty. While the mattress, liner, and blanket in the pack-and-play were saturated with urine and feces, Jailyn was wearing clean clothing when the police arrived. This suggested to them that when Kristel saw the shocking situation, she decided to quickly change Jailyn's clothes before the police arrived. This was likely an attempt to hide what had happened. They sat down with Kristel to question her about what had happened and how her baby had ended up in such a state.
So, but in the last week, she get a vomiting too. Remember right now, you mentioned the vomiting. She get a vomiting the last week, Monday and Tuesday, two times. But I was trying controlling because I know I give to her Tylenol or something, for controlling the vomiting. Last night she was crying a lot, and I see one moment when I was take a shower, and she was screaming like I don't know, probably she get a pain. Okay. Maybe.
Kristel says she woke up to find Jailyn's face purple, and that's when she called 911.
In this morning when I wake up, I took her in the morning for Jailyn, wake up, and she wake up, and when I see her, I see she looks like a really, really dry, like a, ¿cómo se dice cuando una persona se chupa, o sea, se...
Kind of like...
Yes.
Like her face was sunken in?
So, yeah. Y ahí fue que yo me asusté y dije, yes, and she looks like a purple. I said, oh my God.
And that was what time this morning?
In this morning, when I called to emergency, I don't remember the exact time, but maybe 8 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kristel then transitions to Spanish, but a translator explains.
And she would always sleep in the playpen at the end of the bed?
Sí, siempre duerme, por eso le ponemos colchitas ahí, pero ella ayer, como le explicaba al oficial, ella era de un carácter así que lloraba y así tiraba todo, y entonces ayer ella estaba así, yo la agarré y le digo, calma, estaba muy inquieta.
She says that, she normally sleeps in the playpen. The playpen, she puts like blankets and things like that to kind of cushion it.
Okay.
She says the baby last night was very, wouldn't stay still, almost like if something's bothering.
Yeah.
The police listened to Kristel's story, but they weren't entirely convinced. The state Jailyn was found in, the condition of the playpen, and the overall scene raised several red flags. They sensed something wasn't adding up. If her daughter had been so sick that she hadn't eaten in 4 days, why didn't Kristel take her to the hospital? This was a detail that the police found deeply suspicious. Another detail that stood out during the police interview was Kristel's attitude. Despite Jailyn's lifeless body lying next to her covered by a blanket, Kristel appeared remarkably calm. Most parents in such a horrific situation would be inconsolable and unable to speak coherently. Kristel, however, seemed calm and collected. With their suspicions growing, they instructed Kristel to gather her belongings, and they took her to the Cleveland Police Homicide Unit for further questioning on June 18th. During this questioning, Kristel admitted that she had not been home earlier that week as she had initially claimed. She confessed to occasionally working as an Uber driver and revealed that on Monday, June 12th, around 7 or 8 in the morning, she left her home to drive to Detroit, Michigan. The drive from Cleveland to Detroit takes approximately 2.5 hours, a detail that didn't sit well with the investigators. They questioned Kristel's decision, asking why she wouldn't simply work as an Uber driver in Cleveland, where she lived. Kristel's response that she wanted to visit a boyfriend in Michigan raised further concerns. If her daughter was truly sick, why would she leave her alone to travel and work? The detectives pressed further, asking Kristel why she didn't take Jailyn with her on the trip, especially if she knew her daughter was sick. Kristel's reply was that she simply wanted to get away and travel. Her explanations were full of inconsistencies, and the investigators decided to increase the pressure. They informed Kristel that they were reviewing camera footage and that she'd better tell the truth, or they would uncover it themselves sooner or later. As their investigation intensified, police uncovered the shocking truth. Kristel had lied about everything. Kristel and Jailyn lived in Cleveland with Kristel's parents and her older daughter Amaya. However, on June 1st, Kristel's parents took a vacation to Ecuador, taking her older daughter with them, leaving Kristel alone with her younger daughter. Kristel was resentful of this. She felt that if everyone else could go on vacation and enjoy their lives, she deserved a break too. Overwhelmed by work and the responsibilities of caring for her children, Kristel was desperate for a change of scenery. Nothing seemed capable of stopping her from going on vacation, not even the fact that she was alone responsible for her baby. On June 4th, Kristel left home without Jailyn and traveled out of state. She was seen having a late breakfast at a Denny's in Taylor, Michigan at 11:29 a.m. The police found the restaurant receipts in her car. After reviewing over 648 hours of Ring doorbell camera footage, investigators determined that Kristel returned home on June 6th at 7:41 a.m. This meant Jailyn was left alone for 2 days while Kristel was in Michigan. However, a few days in Michigan wasn't enough for Kristel to satisfy her desire for fun, as she soon headed to Puerto Rico with another boyfriend. Surveillance cameras captured Kristel walking to her car at 5:24 p.m. on June 6th with suitcases. She then drove away from her house, leaving her 16-month-old baby behind once again. A traffic camera caught her driving through Lincoln Park, Michigan at 8:05 p.m. that same day. She was seen passing through Lafayette at Charter northbound on her way to Detroit. The investigators also found her Spirit Airlines boarding passes, which revealed that Kristel had traveled from Detroit, Michigan to San Juan, Puerto Rico on June 8th and remained there until June 11th. Evidence from her phone, including photos and messages, showed her enjoying a fun vacation with friends without a worry in the world about her 16-month-old baby left alone in a playpen back home. They showed someone prioritizing their own pleasure while their child was left alone in a playpen, neglected and vulnerable. During her time in Puerto Rico, Kristel was quite active on social media, sharing photos of herself enjoying the vacation. There were pictures of her on the beach, dining and drinking with a smile in every image. Tragically, while Kristel was enjoying her vacation, a neighbor's Ring doorbell captured Jailyn's cries coming from inside the house on June 9th at 1:04 a.m. and numerous other occasions. This recording of Jailyn's cries is heartbreaking. She was crying out for help, for someone to feed her, bathe her, hold her, and show her love while her mother was on vacation, posting carefree photos. It was an infuriating and deeply saddening contrast. After leaving Puerto Rico, Kristel didn't return directly to her home in Cleveland. Instead, she spent a few days in Detroit, Michigan and Imlay, Michigan from June 12th to the 15th. Traffic cameras across the state captured her passing through different locations. On June 16th at 7:36 a.m., the doorbell camera captured her arriving back at her Cleveland house. The footage showed her unloading her suitcase and entering the house. Just 10 minutes later, she called 911. While the detectives interviewed Kristel, Jailyn's body was transported to the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's office for an autopsy. The autopsy report painted a grim picture of a helpless child left to suffer alone, highlighting the devastating consequences of Kristel's actions. Dr. Elizabeth Mooney, who performed the autopsy, said,
"So at autopsy, I examined the body of a very emaciated female toddler. At this point, she weighed 13 pounds. Upon review of medical records, this indicated approximately a 7-pound weight loss since her previous doctor's visit less than 2 months prior to that.
Her sunken eyes, loss of muscle and fat around her temples, and inelastic skin with poor turgor all pointed to severe malnutrition and dehydration.
In addition, there was abundant fecal material present caked on the fingers, the fingernails, the hands, the feet, as well as the soles of the feet. The same material was found on her lips, which were very dry and flaking, as well as in her oral cavity, caked to her teeth.
This indicated that Jailyn had tried to eat her own body waste when she was hungry. Early signs of decomposition indicated that she had died 2 to 3 days before Kristel came back. Inside her body, more evidence of starvation and dehydration were found. Jailyn's body fluids were also submitted for additional toxicology and chemistry testing, which further confirmed Dr. Mooney's initial findings that Jailyn had died due to severe dehydration.
Which further confirmed my gross findings that she had passed in a state of severe dehydration. Her kidneys had failed, and she was in a state of ketoacidosis, which leads to coma and eventually death. As such, I determined the cause of death to be just that, starvation and severe dehydration due to pediatric neglect.
Pediatric neglect is the failure of a caregiver to adequately meet a child's basic needs, including physical safety, protection, food, clothing, shelter, education, medical or dental care, and supervision. In other words, neglect of Jailyn's basic needs by a caregiver resulted in her death. Therefore, her death was ruled to be a homicide. Before we delve deeper into this tragic case, let's take a look at the events that led to this point. Jailyn Candelario was born on January 26, 2022, to Kristel Candelario and Henry Garcia. Kristel also had an older daughter named Amaya from a previous relationship. When Kristel and Amaya's father separated in 2016, Kristel moved to the United States with Amaya to raise her. They relocated from Ecuador to Cleveland, Ohio, where they lived with Kristel's grandmother. A few years later, Kristel's parents, Ketty and Cleaver, joined them in Cleveland. The 5 of them lived together in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. Kristel's parents and grandmother were a great help, taking care of Amaya and providing support to Kristel. In 2019, Kristel started working at Hope Academy North Coast as an instructional aide, and later worked at Citizens Academy Glenville as a substitute teacher. In 2020, Kristel connected with Jailyn's father Henry through Facebook. They quickly formed a bond online, starting to date and develop a long-distance relationship since Henry was in Ecuador and Kristel was in Ohio. Due to visa complications, Henry couldn't travel to the US, so Kristel decided to visit him in Ecuador. After meeting in person, they deepened their connection and even went on a vacation together to the Dominican Republic. However, the vacation eventually came to an end. A few weeks after returning to Ohio, Kristel discovered she was pregnant. She informed Henry about the pregnancy, but due to his visa issues, he couldn't travel to the US. Despite the challenges, they decided to make things work and kept their relationship going through phone calls and virtual communication. They maintained constant communication, sharing photos and updates on social media, and engaging in video chats. Kristel occasionally visited Henry in Ecuador, though not frequently. While things initially seemed good, her relationship with Henry slowly got worse. They kept breaking up and getting back together, which wasn't healthy, and eventually they split for good. Despite the challenges in her relationship with Henry, Kristel appeared genuinely excited about her pregnancy. She shared ultrasound photos on social media, and to the outside world, everything seemed to be progressing normally. Kristel remained in Ohio to give birth to Jailyn, and Henry was able to witness the birth through video chat. Baby Jailyn was born with big, beautiful eyes and adorable cheeks. She was a truly lovely baby, described as wonderful, curious, happy, and always smiling. Kristel worked long hours to provide for her family, leaving her less time to dedicate to her 2 children. So her parents and grandmother helped as much as they could, taking care of both Amaya and Jailyn. However, their capacity was limited. Shortly after Jailyn's birth, neighbors started noticing that Kristel would leave Jailyn alone for periods of time with other people. Essentially, anyone who agreed to watch Jailyn would be left with her. However, when Kristel started leaving Jailyn entirely alone in her home, her neighbors expressed their concern.
Not to leave her by herself. Not only me, my friend across the street too, but she always be here by herself.
But that didn't stop Kristel. She continued leaving Jailyn, sometimes with the neighbors, sometimes entirely alone. with a growing disregard for her daughter's well-being. In August 2022, Kristel asked one of her neighbors to take care of Jailyn for just a weekend, but the weekend turned into a month and a half with no sign of Kristel. The neighbor kept calling Kristel asking for money to buy milk and other things to provide for the baby. Even though the neighbors were concerned and disapproved of how Jailyn was being cared for, they never involved social services or the police. Maybe they were unsure of the severity of the situation, or perhaps they hoped Kristel would rectify her behavior. Whatever the reason, their silence ultimately had devastating consequences.
There were so many people here. She could have knocked on any of our doors and asked us to take care of Jailyn, and we all would have.
In January 2023, Kristel's situation worsened significantly. Overwhelmed by financial difficulties and ongoing issues with Henry, her mental health declined in January 2023, leading her to attempt suicide by consuming 20 ibuprofen pills. In February, Kristel's mother rushed her to Hillcrest Hospital after half of Kristel's body became completely numb. At first, doctors suspected a stroke, but further tests revealed the numbness was actually a manifestation of severe anxiety. They prescribed Kristel 2 different antidepressants and sent her home. However, even with the medication, Kristel's condition didn't improve. She continued to experience severe migraines, numbness in half her body, and persistent anxiety. In March, she returned to Hillcrest Hospital seeking help. Once again, doctors conducted tests, but their conclusion remained the same. Kristel appeared physically healthy, and her symptoms were attributed to anxiety and stress triggering her body's reactions. They discharged her with additional antidepressants and medication to aid her sleep. After her hospital visits, Kristel returned to her daily routine, taking her medicines diligently. However, when her medication ran out, she didn't get a refill and abruptly stopped taking the medicines. Discontinuing such strong medications requires a gradual tapering process under a doctor's supervision to avoid serious withdrawal effects. Unfortunately, Kristel didn't follow this protocol. Whether neglecting her medication led to a worsening mental health crisis, ultimately contributing to the tragic events that followed, remains unclear. With mounting evidence against her, including footage from Ring and traffic cameras, as well as interviews with neighbors, Kristel was arrested on June 19, 2023. She faced multiple charges, including murder, felonious assault, endangering children, and aggravated murder. Held at the Cuyahoga County Jail, her bond was set at $1 million. Psychiatric tests were conducted to assess her competency to stand trial and her sanity at the time of the crime. The results determined that she was indeed competent and sane when these horrific events unfolded. On February 22, 2024, Kristel accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to aggravated murder and endangering children. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for March 18, 2024. During the hearing, Kristel's attorney, Derek Smith, told the court that while no one was trying to excuse her behavior, Kristel just wasn't thinking clearly at the time. She had struggled emotionally and physically, trying to support her 2 daughters. After stopping her prescribed medication, her mental health issues worsened, further impacting her decisions and judgment. He argued that photos of Kristel on that trip don't show the turmoil inside. She hid her suffering from her parents and her doctors. During the 911 call, her desperate plea for help can be heard. She didn't want Jailyn to die. Her actions led to this tragedy, but she didn't want it to happen. By pleading guilty to aggravated murder and child endangerment, she has taken responsibility for her actions. Kristel's parents also spoke on her behalf, expressing deep remorse. They apologized to both Kristel and Jailyn for not seeing the signs that their daughter was struggling internally. They regret not recognizing them sooner, believing that doing so might have prevented this tragedy. In their view, depression and anxiety had consumed Kristel, clouding her judgment and reasoning. While Kristel's defense aimed to prove that she wasn't of sound mind when she left Jailyn alone, the evidence presented by the state suggested she had clear mental capacity during that time.
Ms. Candelario was depressed. And no one more than I appreciate mental health and mental health issues and the programs that this court and my office have tried to implement to help folks with mental health. This is not the case here. This is not the case at all. Her actions speak louder than words. She had the wherewithal to leave Cuyahoga County and drive to Detroit, to be not with one man, but with two, let alone leaving a child, her own flesh and blood, in a pack-and-play.
She planned her travel, purchased flight tickets, packed her bags, drove to another state, navigated airport security, and traveled to Puerto Rico. Furthermore, she actively took photos, selected which ones to post on social media, and wrote captions for them. These actions indicate she was capable of making decisions and understanding her surroundings, suggesting she was sane during this period. Kristel's complete lack of remorse for her daughter's death was further revealed through recorded prison phone calls.
There was never mention about her daughter in her phone calls, and in fact, on January 6th of 2024, she's talking to her mother, who she repeatedly talks to.
Instead of acknowledging her terrible mistake and the awful loss of her child, Kristel focused only on the good parts of her vacation. She even spoke about other people who have committed intentional murders and gotten away with it while she made a mistake. She insisted that she didn't kill her daughter on purpose. She didn't shoot her or hit her with a baseball bat. It was just an accident.
Who have gone free here, killing people. I mean, imagine. I mean, intentionally, and mine was practically an accident. I mean, because it was not like I did it intentionally. It's not like I picked up a gun or a bat.
What kind of mother chooses pleasure over her own child's life? Kristel Candelario's actions defy any explanation or excuse. An innocent and vulnerable child was betrayed by the one person who should have protected her above all else. Just before her sentence was announced, Kristel herself testified before the court. She spoke of the profound impact the loss of Jailyn had on her. She acknowledged her actions without attempting to justify them, but said that no one knew what she was going through and how much she was suffering. She loved both her daughters a lot, and they were very close. She sought forgiveness from God, her daughters Jailyn and Amaya, and her parents. She expressed her enduring love for Jailyn, confessing that not a day went by that she didn't think of her. After hearing all the testimonies and reviewing the evidence, the judge finally gave his verdict.
Leaving your baby, terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable, with no food, no water, no protection, and lying in her own feces. You have a child already. You raised another child. And I've witnessed here before me your parents who showed you love and respect and education. And they came here to help you, to advocate for you, more than what you've done for your own child. The evidence that I've witnessed here before this court shows that this time you simply chose not to be here because you wanted to have fun. You decided you needed a vacation. And what followed was absolute depravity. You left your baby, Jailyn, trapped in a pack-and-play without food and water for 10 days. This wasn't simply an oversight. You could have saved Jailyn's life many times. Aggravated murder. I'm going to sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. On count 5, I'm going to sentence you to 8 years to run concurrent to count 1. The endangering children, because of the Reagan-Tokes thing, it would be 8 to 12 years. That would be concurrent with the aggravated murder, which is life without parole. Is there anything else, Mr. Smith, on behalf of the defense?
The pain and terror baby Jailyn must have endured in her final days are truly unimaginable. While mental health issues and overwhelming stress may have played a role in Kristel's choices, they cannot justify her complete abandonment of her parental responsibilities.
She loved her mother, she needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her. Mothers usually want their children to have a long, happy life.
These words spoken by Sergeant Gomez captured the devastating weight of a mother's ultimate betrayal. Detective T.J. Powell, who was one of the investigators on the case, wrote a heartfelt poem commemorating Jailyn's life.
J is for the justice that'll be received today. A is for the angel wings she earned on that joyful day. I is for the incremental repetition build-up of suspense for an innocent bystander's death that clearly makes no sense. L is for the lack of love while alone for 11 days. Y is for a young life that was taken away. N is for new eternal life Jailyn gained on that day. No child should ever have to die this way.
What do you think about today's case? Do you believe justice was served, or is there more to the story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more deep dives into true crime cases, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. And if you found this case as fascinating as we did, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.